I'm going to show you how to build a Tier 12 DREADHUSK, which is the best defender in the game currently and should finally give us a chance against these Conqueror fleets. Hey everyone, Derpy here, and welcome back to another Battle Pirates video. As I get started, I do have a few things to mention. The first one is that this is obviously a PvP video, and I'm not sort of sharing any alliance builds, alliance secrets. I don't even think those really exist. In any case, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to mention is that I do have a build stock available, which is made possible by my channel members. To get these builds, and I'm working on adding some turrets too, all you have to do is open that link, which is, by the way, completely free, find the DREADHUSK tab and copy and paste in the hash code, and I do have a bunch of other ships in there as well. But let's go ahead and get started with the build. I've got absolutely no clue why I'm showing the Gobbler crew here. I'm not implying that Kixeye is making it really hard for defenders. Let's go ahead and, I'm not sure how that got up there. Let's open up the shipyard. Now I do have one of these done. I am going to make a video showing a few hits against my base and my hits against the Kixeye employee bases, showing you some of the pretty obvious weaknesses that this has, which involve mountains. But let's go ahead and get started in design mode. For the weapons, there's really only one choice for this. This is the rocket that came with the ship. Without that, it's not really even worth hitting, and is only 10k bounty points, and a bounty that is actually pretty easy. If you're not sure what I mean, I will try and make a video on that one too, but auto the 112s from the south with one long range and one short range ship. In any case, these weapons are pretty interesting. Look at the salvo of 5 and the salvo reload time of 0.4. This means no matter how high you get your rocket reload, actually it's 150% that hits this cutoff, you're not going to shoot quicker than 4 shots between each volley of 5, although between volleys you can still go ahead and hit that 0.2 minimum reload time. This means that if there were some special that gave us 150% rocket reload, I would be just okay using that one, at least to hit the 0.4 reload time within the volley itself. I'll talk about that more when I talk about the last special. In any case, this hull is pretty interesting. I do want to point out that it has a berserk, and how this works is actually pretty complicated. A lot of it makes sense just based on the stats block, although I'm annoyed that that R is over there. Basically, every time you hit 300 million, 500 million, or 700 million armor points of damage, you have an aura which lasts for the rest of the battle. And what this does is it increases your explosive damage, but makes you a little bit slower. And the 501 will replace completely the 301, for example. And that just is modifications to the hull. It makes it do more damage and lowers combat speed that might be more relevant if you are hitting something. In terms of the specials, the first thing you have to decide is, do you want your ship to move or to stay stationary? I generally like my ships to move, so I'm not going to put on the Stalwart Sentinel Engine 2, which is what I would use if this ship were stationary. What I would instead use would be the turbocharged engine X right here. You might be able to take some of these off your Helios or some other hulls if you want to scrap those because they're old at this point. And this is just going to give you damage, and the combat speed as well is pretty standard. Now, once we have this out the way, we can go ahead and move on to a few of our other specials. Everything else I'm going to put on here is related to increasing the damage that you are doing here, which is really, really important. The first one that you want to use is going to be an explosive damage special, which I sometimes just try and find it by the name here, although I might just have to go into search. This is going to be the Desolation Warheads, which gives projectile speed, which is of course nice, although not that relevant, and the 85% explosive damage is the really important part. I do want to mention that if you could come up with a build that was going to use just the special that would be the Warhead Reloader, this rocket reload here would be enough, although it doesn't stack, which I find a little bit annoying. In any case, Desolation Warheads is the best special you want to use, which gives you a bunch of explosive damage, a bunch of splash. There's really nothing else better, other than maybe the Help Rank Warheads, which you can't use because it's locked to the Conqueror only. Next up, we're going to put on something to benefit rockets, and this is one I did not originally see. This is the Flanged Warhead. It's a pretty old special. I'm not sure where you can get it. Just put it on prize requests on Discord if you don't. And this will give you rocket critical chance and rocket critical damage, which is probably bugged and is not actually increasing it, but that's besides the point. And the range is pretty nice, so you can start to maybe outrange some of those contagions if they don't have scope and are using the wrong weapon. So there's one option there for you. Other things you consider instead of this might just be the pure explosive damage explosive upgrade if you don't have the special for some reason. Moving on to the third special slot, this is going to be Garrison Battery. Make sure you equip Garrison Battery and not Assault Battery, obviously because Assault Battery does not help Explosive, and Garrison Battery has a plus 18%. This percentage is pretty small. I did almost consider using, say, Explosive Scope instead of this one for longer range and being able to outrange everything for sure, even Scope Contagions with the 125 range weapon, but I decided very, very few people except the last person who hit my base are using that. So there's one option for you. The last special is going to be a rocket reload special. I mentioned the 0.4 minimum reload time within the salvo. You can actually hit this if you get your rocket reload up to, I think it's 150%, which is very, very easy. Close to Warheads 1 does this. But as I currently understand it, every fifth shot, you'll be able to hit the minimum reload time of 0.2 seconds between, and since there's no other special that makes sense to throw on there, it's not like we can put the Warhead Reloader on there that I talked about because it's maxed out in terms, it's blocked by something else. What you instead want to use is just Cluster Warheads 3. If you want to know how to get this, you can get it by hitting salvages. There's a particular level to use. Use the Lucky Bastards crew, hit all the salvages you can find, and you should start to get blueprints or shards or whatever it is for this one, which should be pretty nice. So there are the initial specials that I'm throwing on here. I actually have a ship built just like this one, although I used Close to Warheads 1. I think it might have been a little bit faster, not by much though, not enough to matter. I have one of these in my base. I will make a video showing people hitting me using this one, and I'm going to change my base layout around slightly because I have a few modifications to make. But let's go ahead and discuss some armors. The first armor I want to use is really what is relevant against people who are hitting you, and most people hitting me in the current meta are using Contagions. For that reason, I'm going to throw on a bunch of Protector Plates CO2. You can put on, or CO12, you can put on an equipped cap of 2 of them, and that should help against the Contagions, even though you have a base defense of Corrosive that's already pretty high. I think it's 50% or something like that beforehand, which maybe it's 60%, which is pretty nice, so you don't really need to put this on there, although so many people are using Contagions, I'm just putting them on here anyway. The caveat with that is that it might make people more likely to be able to chain on this against a bunch of other stuff, but being that you'll be shooting at these guys the whole time, I think it's fine for me to use this. If it was a really short-range ship that wasn't moving, then maybe you actually wouldn't want to put on armor so people couldn't chain off this one, although the placement in your base will be important as well. Now, the other 2 armors should again be used on what people are using when they're hitting you. I think Concussive is likely the way to go, although looking at the defenses, the explosive defense of 20% is the lowest one which is on here, and we have a Conqueror ship 4. And for that reason, I'm thinking Helmaz would be pretty nice to help defend against, because as you'll see in my video attacking this ship, a lot of times Helmaz are the best thing to use against this one, and getting this up to close to 40 would be pretty nice. But being that Helmaz are pretty weak and are only at U1, I don't know if Kixeye is going to offer an X1, X2, K1, U2, whatever. If they do and people start using Helmaz, you might want to put on some of those armors against those ones, although notably you are able to outrange Helmaz, so you're not too worried about them. But for right now, at least if I was building this today in the current game, I'm going to put on some concussive plates. It looks like I need to pick up one more in Bounty. But there is my build for the DREADHUSK, and it should work pretty well. I have one of them in my base. It didn't quite work the one time someone hit me, but did do more damage than my Horrors, which are really not doing a lot. If you have questions on this build or things that you would do differently, go ahead and let me know in the comments. I want to give a huge thank you to the channel members whose names appear on the end screen now. They're helping keep the channel running and are why I can provide things like the build stock. If you find that doc or these videos helpful and want to support, you can click the join button on YouTube. As always, and until next time, this is Derpy signing out, helping you be a better pirate.